So I picked up an SCA80 off of eBay, hooked it up to a set of my own speakers. I'll show you the speakers. There's one, it's the old Tri-Trixes, and there's the other one kind of into the corner. Now we're back to the SCA80, and let's turn on the power and see what we hear. Just a little bit of hum. I think we've got some capacitor problems. But that's what the C9 kit's all about. So now we're measuring the voltage on C9 and we see it's really kind of low, 49.9 volts DC. We put an oscilloscope on to C9 to see how much AC ripple there was, and my gosh, we've got a ton. It's like there's almost no C9 left at all. We're on 10 volts per box, 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 volts a ripple. My gosh, we're doing great that's only the hum we're hearing right now. Looks like the diodes are good because on 2 milliseconds per box we do have about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 milliseconds between peaks, so that's about 120 hertz ripple. So at least we don't have any blown diodes, but that capacitor is certainly gone. Here's the cap we need to change. Originally it was a 5000 microfarad 80 volt cap, and it's got about a 2-inch diameter. You just can't get those kind of caps anymore. We're going to use 3 caps in a dynamite capacitor configuration. Each one will be 3300 microfarads at 80 volts. That'll give us a total of 9900 microfarads. That pretty well doubles the amount of capacitance from the original. That should give us a lot better bass. Alright, let's get started. Mark and then desolder the wires, because we do want to get them back into the right place. And what we'll just do is mark them for polarity. This wire connects to the negative terminal. These wires connect to the positive terminal. Here are the 3 caps we're going to use to replace the one old cap. We'll remove the 3 screws that hold the cap in. There's one there, and a little hard to see, maybe see, there's the one there, and there's the 3rd screw. Really important, before we do any work, let's pull the power from the SCA80. Just made a couple of masking tape labels with the polarities of the wires, and we'll take those labels and we'll put them on the wires before we remove them. These 3 screws hold C9 in place. There's the cap that we've removed. If you notice, that clamp is held together by that bit of hardware right here. We're going to remove that, pull the old cap out, and then build the dynamite capacitor configuration to replace it. We've removed the screw. That lets us open up the clamp, and we should be able to get the 3 caps in, and just use a slightly longer screw to put things back together. Note how we've rotated the 3 negative leads of the caps together to face the center. That'll let us hook up the grounds with a fair amount of ease. Let's turn this guy just a little bit. And while that screw is out, we see that if we just compress it a little bit, we're going to have no problem putting everything back together. The kit comes with a 5/8 inch 632 Phillips SEM screw and a 632 Keps nut. So all the lock washer retention is built in and you can't lose a lock washer. So we're just going to put that screw on and firm it up to hold the capacitors in place. Turn the amp over and locate the 3 holes that will mount the cap. Then take the cap, and you'll probably be able to locate 2 holes really quite easily. The 3rd hole is a bit off. So now you can make one of 2 choices. You can say, good enough, 2 holes is certainly going to hold it just great. Alternatively, with a little bit of fussing and bending, specifically if you use pretty much this layout of the caps where the single cap is a little bit away from the restriction of the mounting hole, and these guys here are also away from their respective mounting holes. That lets you do a little bit more smushing on the bracket, and you can get a pretty good fit for all three holes. 1, 2, 3. Whether it's worth doing that extra bit, I couldn't say for sure, but it's there as a possibility. Take the supplied wire and strip off about 4 inches of the insulation. Then we'll cut this into two 2-inch long uninsulated pieces of wire. Put a couple of twists in the center, and then you'll solder the wire. There's the result. One loop around each of the ground posts attaches the ground bus to the caps, and then you solder them. That's the result of putting on that ground bus. Here's what the completed capacitor assembly looks like. Turning the amp up on its side is about the best way to get those screws back in. It takes a little bit of patience. All that remains to do now is to solder in the wires that we had previously removed, and then we're done. If your amp's like mine, there's a good chance that the green power wire will be too short. Installation's complete. You'll notice we used a little bit of blue heat shrink to splice the green wire with some of the supplied red wire so that we had enough length to get over here to the capacitor. Let's fire it up and see if the hum is a bit less. We're doing a whole lot better now. That's the voltage after we've replaced the caps. And if you listen carefully, the only hum that you might hear at this point is the hum of the fluorescent lights in the room.